Following the vision of the ram and the he-goat, the book of Daniel goes into an interpretation of Scripture for the next apocalyptic vision. Chapter 9 is known traditionally as the vision of Gabriel and the 70 weeks. And it begins with the prophet Daniel, set in the Babylonian captivity, pondering the words of the prophet Jeremiah in chapter 25, verse 11 to 12, and chapter 29, verse 10, in which Jeremiah decrees for the people being taken into exile, that God decrees 70 years of exile before he will bring them back and restore their kingdom. Well, from the author's perspective, there's a certain dilemma going on here, which he incorporates into this vision that Daniel has from the exile. The author is speaking from the mid-2nd century BC, in which his people are suffering a terrible persecution at the hands of Antiochus IV, the king of the Seleucid Hellenistic kingdom. Since the Babylonian exile, there has been the Persian Empire that conquered Babylon and allowed the people to return. After a few hundred years, from 587 to 165 BC, the people lived under Persian domination before they were conquered by Alexander the Great and the Greek people. Upon Alexander's death, his kingdom was divided by his 4 generals, of which 2, Ptolemy and Seleucid, ruled over the people of Israel. And now, under the Seleucid Empire, the people of Israel are being persecuted, still not liberated, still no independent Jewish kingdom, after roughly 420 years. So from the author's perspective, Jeremiah had decreed 70 years, but now they are many times past that, and not only are they not an independent kingdom, but they are suffering persecution. In other words, they are still in exile. So Daniel asks the question, how are we to understand that prophecy? And he asks God for guidance to ponder and understand what Jeremiah meant. Here again, the angel Gabriel is sent to interpret that prophecy for Daniel. And it is Gabriel who says, 70 weeks are decreed before an end to sufferings, or an end to exile. In English, we translate the word to 70 weeks, but the ancient word in the text actually is 70 weeks of years. Now, when we consider weeks of years, how many days are in a week of days? 7. So how many years are in a week of years? 7. So it's 70 weeks of years, or 70 sabbaticals, which is a period after 7 years, before God intervenes for his holy people. Now here's where we're required to do a little bit of math in our heads. 70 weeks of years would come to roughly 490 years. When you consider the history between the Babylonian captivity and the persecution under Antiochus and the Seleucid Empire, it comes to roughly 420 years. Now granted, they will have to endure this persecution, but when you look at 420 years against 490 years, the 70 weeks of years that was decreed by God and declared by Gabriel, we see the hope in this message that while we are still enduring persecution and exile, while we are still enduring the fact that there is no independent Jewish kingdom, while we're still enduring the fact that God has not yet restored and rescued his holy people, at 420 years later, we are now closer to the end time, when God will restore his people Israel. So again, the people of Israel, through this vision, are being encouraged to be patient a little while longer. Not only is this an interpretation of history, but it's a new understanding of Scripture that Daniel provides in this particular vision of Gabriel and the 70 weeks. The people are still in exile, and that in deference to Jeremiah's prophecy, not 70 years, but 70 weeks of years have been decreed, and now we are closer, not to the beginning, but we are closer to the end, when God will eventually restore his people, restore the kingdom of his people, and save those who are faithful to him.